Okay, hey, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to episode 98 of the Fortnite Mythbusters. In today's episode, I tested out so many awesome myths that you guys suggested on the last episode. So, just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters, make sure to go down in the comments and drop a comment of that myth for a pretty good chance to be featured. Also, if you guys do enjoy today's video at any moment, feel free to leave a like. Let's see if we could smash 15,000 likes on today's video. That would be insane. And if you guys do enjoy today's video, feel free to consider subscribing to the channel and turning on those post notifications. Only 12% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so it would really mean a lot, and we're on the road to 1 million, so let's see if we can hit that by the end of 2020. Anyways, guys, without further ado, let's get right on into today's video. To kick things off, jumping into the first myth is what happens when you're shaking down a henchman and the floor breaks beneath you. Will the animation of shaking down the henchman continue, or will it cancel out? Now, this myth was actually very similar to one we did a couple episodes ago, where we were placing down a launch pad beneath the player while they are shaking down the henchman, and surprisingly then it wouldn't even allow us to place down the launch pad. So I thought this was a good one to kind of mix things up, but still similar to that last one. When I tried this out, I had a knocked henchman as well as a floor beneath that was just about 1 HP, and I made sure there was a pretty good drop beneath us, about 1 wall height. I then picked up the henchman, started to shake him down, and my second count broke the floor. And unlike the launch pad myth that we tested out a few episodes ago, the animation actually continued even when we were mid-air. I mean, I pulled the little iPad or the phone or whatever, the scanner, out of the henchman while we were literally falling in mid-air, which was pretty cool. Overall, a pretty unique and interesting myth. Jumping into the next myth, a highly requested one. This one is, what happens if someone is sitting on the edge of a helicopter and gets harpooned? Will it pull them out of the helicopter, or will nothing really happen? This myth has been requested so many times, literally ever since the helicopter has came out, so I thought I would eventually test it, and here I am now. When I tried this myth out, I basically got on my second account with a phone, and as you can tell, the harpoon gun clearly pulls your teammate as it would an enemy. I then basically let my second account fly the helicopter and jump into the passenger side seat on the helicopter, and it slowly floated down. The harpoon gun literally hit my player as well as the helicopter multiple times, but nothing really seemed to ever happen. The harpoon clearly went through my teammate, and as we saw in the first clip, the teammate should have been pulled towards me, but instead he just stuck literally on the side of the helicopter. Something to note is that every time you try and harpoon the player, even if it hits a player or even the helicopter, it will use 1 HP or basically 1 ammo slot for the harpoon gun, so you might want to use it wisely. Jumping into the next myth is, what happens when a helicopter lands on top of a crash pad? Will the helicopter bounce into the air, or what exactly happens? Now, the crash pads are a lot of fun in the game, and I mean, you throw these things down and it'll launch you up super high into the air. So with a helicopter, you might think maybe it'll bounce a helicopter up into the air, but unfortunately it seems like the helicopter has no effect to the crash pad at all. I mean, the helicopter will literally go through it. It doesn't, you know, like break the crash pad or anything. Just the helicopter doesn't even notice it's there, really. If you were to jump on the crash pad as a regular player, it'll launch you up into the air. But the interesting thing is if you are flying a helicopter, or I assume in a passenger seat, every time your player directly hits the crash pad, it won't send you up into the air, but it'll still kind of make the animation effects on the side of the screen to show that you are being launched. I think it would be pretty funny to have the crash pad down on the ground and you land a helicopter on top of it, and maybe it'll send you flying up into the air. I don't know, maybe just me. Going into another highly requested myth, this myth is, what happens when you throw a C4 into a disguise booth and then detonate the C4 while someone is in there? Now, I thought this was actually a very unique myth, because honestly, I never thought of something like this before, or even tried doing it in a real game. At first, when I tried this, I jumped into the disguise booth and it kind of pushed my teammate back a little bit, but he still was able to throw a C4, and it kind of just disappeared into the booth. We tried to detonate it and nothing really ever happened. We then threw another C4 into the disguise booth, and it kind of bounced around into the booth eventually till it kind of glitched itself out and landed onto the regular ground, showing that you can't really hide a C4 in the booth itself. Even with the C4 on the ground next to the booth, we decided to see what happens if it were to detonate while you are in the booth itself, and surprisingly, it doesn't do any damage to the player that's in the booth, nor the booth itself, but it will destroy everything surrounding it. Something good to know, I mean, if you ever want to do a trap like this, you have to wait till the player is out of the booth till you detonate it. Going into the next myth is, can an enemy decoy trigger a proximity mine that is on the ground? To be honest, in a regular game, you never really see anybody use a proximity mine or even a decoy grenade. I mean, the decoy grenades are actually pretty overpowered. When you tried this myth out, I had a friend who was on the enemy team throw down a decoy grenade while I threw down proximity mines right next to the decoy, who was kind of running around, and the decoy was actually able to trigger the proximity mines and make them explode, which I thought was pretty weird. Decoys themselves are unable to do any damage to you even if their bullets directly hit your player. We tested that out in a previous episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. So with this specific myth, if a decoy is able to set off your own proximity mine, if you're next to the mine, it could do damage to you and possibly even kill you, therefore kind of showing that a decoy is able to kill a real player. Knowing this will definitely make you think twice next time that you throw down these proximity mines, if you even use those. I mean, I never really see anyone using them in game. Going into the next myth is, what happens if you throw a CrashPad into the grotto or steamy stacks? Will you bounce higher than normal because of the air? This was actually another pretty good myth, because the CrashPads, whenever you throw them down, you get the anti-gravity effect, so that will kind of make you think that you'll maybe launch up higher into the air. But when I tested this out in the grotto as well as the steamy stacks, I tried many different variants. I tried to hit the CrashPad and then pull out my glider immediately, as well just kind of let my player glide up into the air, but the anti-gravity effect didn't really seem to change a thing. I mean, the anti-gravity effect would go away instantly whenever you would pull out your glider, no matter how long you had the effect on for as well. So I mean, if you ever do have CrashPads in a regular game, I wouldn't recommend throwing them down in steamy stacks or even the grotto. I mean, it could make for some really cool trick shots, but there's not really much of a difference just by jumping into the actual airflow or even throwing down the CrashPad. Either way, a pretty good myth and something that I'm sure a lot of you guys definitely did not know. Going into the next myth is, while gliding with the Kingsmen umbrella, if you drop in mid-air, will you be able to glide with your own umbrella or glider, or will you just kind of fall to your death? Surprisingly, this myth got a whole ton of requests on the last episode, so I had to test this one out. Basically, the Kingsmen umbrella, it's like this weird umbrella that you could use to hit people with, and it does a good amount of damage. As well, hold right click and you will able to have your own glider for a couple of seconds. I tried this myth out super high up in the air. I was holding the umbrella out. I then went into my inventory, dragged it out, and I was falling to my death, and unfortunately I had no option to redeploy a glider. So I mean, in a real game, you might not want to get rid of it in midair. Since this was a short myth, I thought I would let you guys know this as well. I was flying a helicopter and the items were actually bugged in midair, so I kind of flew my helicopter up next to it, and no matter what item it is floating in midair, your helicopter will take damage to it. It kind of acts like a structure, which is weird. I mean, like, you would expect the items to phase through. Going into the next myth, another highly requested myth. This myth is, can henchmen actually die to fall damage? Now, a whole ton of you guys who are watching this video, I doubt you guys have ever seen a henchman actually take fall damage, because in a real game, you just shoot them immediately and they don't go and just jump off of structures on their own. I mean, you have to pull them off or break the floor beneath them. So when I tested this myth out, I found a henchman who was kind of up on the roof, and I made sure when I was going to pull him off, there was a pretty good drop for him to take some sort of amount of fall damage. Surprisingly, after I pulled the henchman off the roof, he was able to take fall damage. I mean, it was a pretty high height, and he took about 30 fall damage. So I assume, with this being said, I mean, if there's a higher height, maybe like 4 or 5 floors higher, he'll obviously die. Or even if he runs back up to the roof, which this one unfortunately was not, and I pulled them off again, the damage will stack up and they'll eventually die. In a real game, would I ever bother trying to kill a henchman with fall damage? No, but I guess it's something good to know. Going into the last and final myth, this myth is, if you set a nickname for someone on your friends list, then delete them, once you add them back, will they still have the nickname? So for this myth, I used my second account, and I basically named it Mythbusters just because I was recording a Mythbusters episode. I then immediately deleted them, and I added myself back a couple seconds later. It was like a good 30 seconds. I accepted the friend request, and the nickname, it was gone. I mean, like, it would make sense if the nickname was there, but unfortunately it automatically got removed. But I still did have the option to re-add another one. Anyways, that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. I hope you have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel if you are new. Turn on those post notifications to never miss another Fortnite Mythbusters episode. Thank you guys so much. For 600,000 subscribers a couple days ago, we zoomed right past that goal. Another step towards 1 million. Make sure to leave a like on today's video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys next time.